Yesterday I have started male reproductive system and I have taken topics like cross section of testes and also explained about scrotum. Today I will be explaining about accessory ducts. So which are the ducts that comes under accessory ducts? The accessory ducts include testes, the next accessory duct is vasa efferentia, and then epididymis, deferentia, so these are the accessory ducts present in the male reproductive system. Now what is the function of these accessory ducts is they convey the sperms from the site of production ultimately to urethra. That is the common site both for release of urine as well as semen, and those ducts are called as accessory ducts. The first duct, which I have already explained yesterday, is a rete testis. So how rete testis has to be understood is rete testis is in form of network of ducts. They are very minute ducts and they are supposed to be present in form of network. Now how rete testis forms network is the seminiferous tubules arise as tubula recti and they unite and form network of tubules called rete testis. So rete testis also I told yesterday is as having the ciliated epithelium, and as the fluid move through the lumen of these ducts, those fluids are called spermatic fluid, and initially since the sperm do not have any movement in these regions, the sperm will basically move with the help of the ducts, the fluid as well as ciliated epithelium. Now next is vasa efferentia. Vasa efferentia is the tube that comes out of the testis. This is the first tube that actually physically comes out of the testis. They are somewhere around 12 to 15 vasa efferentia, and they will connect to a single tube afterwards. That means 12 to 15 tubes, further small ducts, these are what called as vasa efferentia, further unite and then form then forms a single tube, and that tube is called epididymis. So they arise from the testis. They are the first tube that arises from testis. So yesterday I told that testis is divided into compartments, and each one has seminiferous tubules, and they unite and form network of tubules called rete testis. And then the rete testis leads to formation of the next ductules because they are very small in size. They are called as vasa efferentia. After arising or after coming out of the testis, the vasa efferentia will unite and form a single tubule, and that is called as epididymis. So I am going to explain you all now about epididymis. Now epididymis location, as through this diagram it appears as if it is located just laterally, but it is actually present in the posterior part of the testis and slightly towards the lateral side. So location is mainly posterior part of testis. This epididymis is highly coiled. It is so much coiled that if the coil is extended, it can go up to 6 meters. So length is an average up to 6 meters. So it is highly lengthy, but because it will reduce, because of it can be decreased in the overall length. In a highly coiled state, its length is less. But when it is extended, the length of epididymis can go up to 6 meters. Now, epididymis can be divided into 3 parts. The first part here is called caput epididymis. Caput epididymis is called. The middle part is called corpus epididymis. Corpus epididymis. And the last one is called as cauda epididymis. So these are the 3 parts of the epididymis. And there is one fibrous tissue which usually arises from cauda epididymis, and that is the one that will connect the testis to the scrotal wall, and it is called as gubernaculum. So that is about the different parts of the epididymis. Now what is the function of epididymis? Now epididymis is where there can be temporary storage of the sperms. So initially the sperms are found here in the seminiferous tubules. From the site of their formation, now they have to move in the ducts, because the main function of the accessory duct is ultimately convey the sperms. That is the main function of accessory ducts. So to convey the sperm which is produced in this seminiferous tubules should move to tubula recti, and then from there it should reach to rectitestis. From there the sperm should reach to vasa efferentia, and finally it has to now go to outside the testis and then reach into this part, the next part called epididymis. So what happens? How does the sperm move there? Initially the sperm will not have good motility here, because the motility of the sperm is first achieved in epididymis. So most of the movement depends upon the spermatic fluid, the ciliated epithelium, and other other functional factors. So here, as the sperm moves into epididymis, it gets stored there temporarily. So epididymis is storage site, temporary storage site for the sperms. So what happens during storage of sperms within the epididymis? There are 2 functions. One is during storage, there can be physiological maturation. and second is the fertilizing capacity. So during its storage of sperms in epididymis, some changes occur in the sperms. One is physiological maturation. What occurs during physiological maturation is sperm becomes motile in the epididymis. That means it is one step ahead than what it was before in the testis. It means that it gains the motility in epididymis. It also takes up the nourishment from the fluid in the surroundings, and also it gains fertilizing capacity. It means that first time, if at all the sperms are gaining fertilizing capacity, will be during its maturation in epididymis. And third is, even concentration of sperms can occur in epididymis. How it occurs is, because the epididymis is lined by ciliated epithelium, the cilia is stereocilia type, and also the epithelium that is lined here within this epididymis, it can absorb the excess of fluid. As a result, the sperms can get concentrated. So reabsorption is possible here in epididymis. Because of this reabsorption, what can be possible also is that the sperms can get concentrated here in epididymis. So these are the changes occurring in epididymis. It can be stored from 12 hours to 24 hours. But however, before ejaculation, it has to be stored here. So if the sperms will all the time do not move through the ducts, but during ejaculation process, it will be actually released from epididymis. So before ejaculation, it will be getting stored in epididymis. Also, you should know that fertilizing capacity will not only be obtained in epididymis or gained in epididymis, it can also, fertilizing capacity at a second level can also be gained during capacitation in female reproductive tract. So these are some of the points for epididymis. Then, what is the type of epithelium that is present in epididymis? Epididymis is lined by pseudo-stratified epithelium, and the type of cilia present in the epididymis is stereocilia. So this completes explain about epididymis, which is one of the accessory ducts. Then arising from epididymis is the next accessory duct, and that is called vasa deferentia, or vas deferens also it is called. It's just a matter of singular and plural. So the next duct is vasa deferentia, which will arise and ascend up, pass through the inguinal canal and take a loop around urinary bladder. So from the testis arises a duct called vasa differentia, and this duct will enter into abdominal cavity by passing through inguinal canal. It passes through inguinal canal. It will ascend, it is around 35 to 45 centimeters. It is supposed to be a long duct. So it will rise from, it will continue from epididymis, arise, ascend up, cross the inguinal canal and then loop around urinary bladder. So it is going to loop around urinary bladder. So I should draw quickly, and so yesterday we saw what was explained as cross-section of testis, epididymis, and then vas deferens, and so similarly even this side it would be the same. So vas deferens arises from the epididymis, then ascends up, and before entering into abdominal cavity, it should definitely pass through inguinal canal. Now as it passes through inguinal canal, it will directly does not join here to the urethra, but instead it will take a loop around this urinary bladder, and then the swollen end of this vas deferens is called as ampulla. And vas deferens ultimately is going to join with a gland called seminal vesicle, and when both the ducts will join, this will result in another duct, accessory duct called, even though it is not purely accessory because some of the gland components are fused here, so another duct called as ejaculatory duct. Here vas deferens function. So this is going to pass through inguinal canal, and then ultimately join to duct of seminal vesicle gland, now vas deferens also is consisting of an epithelium. The type of epithelium present in vas deferens is ciliated columnar epithelium, and of course it also has smooth muscles associated with it. It means that it can exhibit peristaltic movement. So ciliated epithelium as well as in combination with peristalsis, it is possible that the the fluid along with the sperms can also ascend up along with the how the tube goes. So it is a combination of smooth muscles. The wall of it is having smooth muscles, and second, it is made up of ciliated columnar epithelium. So this was about vasa differentia, and you should know that those people who want to achieve a permanent contraception, in those people vas deferens will be cut and tied back in a permanent contraception called vasectomy. And here I want to schematically represent. Now suppose this was vas deferens. This is a vas deferens of one side. Now this vas deferens is going to join with the duct of seminal vesicle. So seminal vesicle is there. So duct of seminal vesicle will join with that of the vas deferens. So in this way. So this is seminal vesicle, which is the accessory gland. Its duct is going to join with vas deferens. After joining both the ducts, a common duct is formed. So this becomes a common duct. After fusion of two ducts, what becomes is a common duct, and that is called as ejaculatory duct. Ejaculatory duct is combination of duct from a gland and combining it with vas deferens. So vas deferens joins with the duct of seminal vesicle, and what forms is ejaculatory duct, which is the next. It is about 2 centimeters. Ejaculatory duct is 2 centimeters, which will finally join with the tube that arises from the urinary bladder, and that tube is urethra. So this completes accessory duct. I have completed ejaculatory duct also, and now explaining about the urethra. Now urethra is a common passage where both urine also can pass and semen also can pass. So it is a urinogenital duct. It's a common duct, or you can tell urinogenital duct. And this will arise from urinary bladder. It will arise from urinary bladder and then pass through the penis in the corpora spongiosum tissue. Now arising from urinary bladder and then carries both semen plus urine. The next you should know, passes through palace. And finally opens into an opening called urethral meatus. So that was about the common duct called auricular urinogenital duct, where both the semen as well as urine passes. But that is not the case in female reproductive system. So if I now tell what is the trajectory of the sperms, or how the sperms ultimately move from its site of production to outside the body, then you will definitely be able to tell. So first the sperms are produced in testes. From testes the sperms will move in rete testis, and from there the sperms further move in vas efferens, vasa efferentia. Then it will move to epididymis, and the next will be vas deferens, and the next will be ejaculatory duct. The next part will be urethra. And from urethra to urethral meatus, it is going to be released outside the body. So first testis, then vas efferens, and then it is going to so I think you are clear with the path in which the sperms move. So here the sperms are produced in testes, rete testis it goes, vas efferentia, epididymis it comes, then it moves in vas deferens, and finally it will reach where? Urethra, and then the urethral meatus going to be released outside. And this is what is the trajectory of the sperms, or pathway of the sperms. This completes the accessory ducts. Next I will explain about accessory glands present in the male reproductive system. There are three accessory glands. First is located here. This is called gland called seminal vesicle, and there is the second gland here. This is called prostate gland. And third one, it's the size of a pig. It's called as bulbourethral gland, also called as Cowper's gland. Now, what is the function of these accessory glands? Their main function is, their all secretions will combine and form a common fluid here. The fluid is called seminal fluid. So that is the main function of what? Accessory glands. And the fluid, that is the seminal plasma it's called, or seminal fluid it can be called, it consists of useful substances that is necessary for nourishment and movement of the sperms. So that becomes what is called the function of accessory glands. Produces seminal fluid, or it's also called seminal plasma. Now first about seminal vesicle. As you can observe the glands here, seminal vesicle is paired, bulbourethral is paired, but prostate gland is only single, it is unpaired. So it means that there is one right seminal vesicle, left seminal vesicle paired, prostate gland only one unpaired, whereas bulbourethral gland also present two in number. So first is about seminal vesicle, a paired accessory gland. Now seminal vesicle has an alkaline secretion. It secretes a fluid that is alkaline. Now its pH would be on average 7.5. pH is 7.5. As it is, this pH is above 7, it is alkaline fluid. Now the components that the seminal plasma and the other substance that the seminal plasma secretion has is, the secretion also consists of fructose. Now what is the role of fructose is, it will provide energy for the sperms. It is a source of energy for the sperms. And also you should know that fructose is the only substance that is that is only released, or it will only secreted in the male reproductive system. As a result, it is a good marker for detection of crime. Other substances that are also released by seminal vesicle is prostaglandins. Now, function of prostaglandin is they induce muscular contraction in the uterus of the female. It means that presence of prostaglandin, for example, this is the female reproductive system. As the sperm as the sperms are after insemination, the prostaglandins present in the semen can induce waves of contraction from lower to upper direction here, and these contractions can help or aid in movement of sperms also. So this ensures that the sperms will ascend up. And for that there is a smooth muscle contraction in the uterus. And who brings about smooth muscle contraction? Prostaglandins. Smooth muscle contraction. Then what is the contribution? I told that all these three glands will be secreting which fluid? Seminal plasma, which is also called seminal fluid. Now in that 60% contribution of the total seminal plasma is due to seminal vesicle. That means if 100% of seminal plasma is present, out of that 100%, 60% content of the seminal plasma is contributed by seminal vesicle, which is an accessory gland. So this completes about seminal vesicle. You should also know that in invertebrates also there will be seminal vesicle in the reproductive system, but there it does not act as a gland, but instead it is going to act as a temporary storage site for the sperms. That will be in case of invertebrates. Next is prostate gland. Since both are paired, this is unpaired. It means only one prostate gland is present. It is single, or you can tell unpaired gland. And prostate gland secretion is acidic, somewhere around a pH of average around 6.5, slightly acidic, that is slightly below that 7. And prostate gland secretion of the prostate gland consists of calcium ions that can affect the motility of the sperms. And it also consists of citric acid, because of which it can contribute to the acidity of the fluid. And then it also consists of enzymes. Now some of the enzymes which are present here can be proteolytic enzyme, which can digest the protein. And the use of proteolytic activity comes after the insemination. After the insemination, when liquefaction of the semen should occur so that the sperms are released easily, for that these enzymes can be useful. So therefore, those enzymes are present in prostatic fluid, or also called the secretion of prostate gland. So many of the individuals suffer with swelling of prostate gland. This gland is a prostate gland. It gets swelled. So it's called benign prostatic hypertrophy. When this swelling occurs, then what happens is this urethra becomes narrow. When urethra becomes narrow, then there is a difficulty in passing the urine, and it may result in painful micturition or painful urination. So this is about the next gland called prostate gland. gland is bulbourethral gland. Now bulbourethral gland, it is going to secrete alkaline fluid. Just like seminal vesicle, it is also going to release alkaline fluid. Now what is the use of the alkaline fluid? It is definitely to balance the acidity in the female reproductive tract or within the acidic environment within the urethra. So here alkaline fluid, what is the other function of bulbourethral gland is? They are paired, they are pea size and just present in the membranous urethra, prostatic urethra, membranous urethra, pineal urethra. So it is present here in the membranous urethra. So it secretes alkaline fluid. Now function of the secretion of bulbourethral gland will be, it will help in lubrication of tip of the penis as well as the passages present in the penis in which the semen will. Now what is the objective lubrication is? There is a reduction in friction, because of which there is a reduction in the damage of the sperms that passes through urethra during ejaculation. So decrease damage of sperms, reduce the damage of sperms. So this is about the function of the secretion of bulbourethral gland. These glands are similar to Bartholin glands in the female. Also you should know that in one of the natural contraception method called as withdrawal method, it fails in certain individuals who exhibit premature ejaculation, or sometimes it fails because the bulbourethral gland secretion itself will have some amount of sperms, because of which the contraception is not achieved. So this is, you should also know the secretion, the small amount of secretion of the bulbourethral gland can have the sperms, and that leads to failure of natural contraceptions such as withdrawal method. So finally you should know that the secretion of all these three glands has a single name called seminal plasma or seminal fluid. This will combine with the sperms that are conveyed from the testes. And what is the resulting fluid after combination of seminal plasma with sperms? That is called as semen. So you should know that the semen is a combination of seminal plasma and sperms. Coming to semen, what is, you should know that 60% of seminal plasma is contributed by seminal vesicle, 25% will be contributed by mainly by prostate gland, and the remaining will be by the rest of the glands. Then that is going to further combine with the sperms and then form what? Semen. What is the pH of the semen? pH of the semen also is slightly alkaline. It is not always fixed. It may vary depending upon physiological conditions and metabolism and all. And this one, that is the semen, is a normal semen of a normal person. 60% of the sperms will have normal structure and size, or normal morphology it has. Whereas 40% of the semen will have good motility. ejaculate, somewhere around 200 to 300 million sperms will be there. Now what is ejaculation? When the semen is released outside the body, then it is called as ejaculation. And per ejaculation there can be around 300, an average around 300 million sperms. And per ejaculates around 3.5 ml of semen can be there. An average of 3.5 ml of semen can be there. So that is about what you should know about the characteristic features of the semen. Suppose if a person do not have these features, like there is no 60% normal structure in the sperm, or there is no 40% good motility, if these factors will change or these components will change, then what happens is there is a chance that the person can suffer with infertility, which is nothing but inability to produce children. So this completes the accessory glands. So this completes the secondary sex organs such as accessory ducts and accessory glands. The last is the external genitalia. What is the external genitalia in the male? The external genitalia in the male is called penis, and it is a copulatory organ through which occurs a phenomena called insemination. You should know the difference between ejaculation and insemination. Ejaculation is release of semen outside the body, but insemination is deposition of sperms or the semen into the vagina of the female, is called as insemination. So penis is considered to be the external genitalia. Now cross section of penis, it will have three bundles of or bands of erectile tissue here. They are called as, two of them are present on the dorsal side, and this is the ventral aspect. This is the dorsal, that is up, above and below. Two of them are present on dorsal side, and one of the erectile tissue is present on ventral side. The two that are present on the dorsal side, they are called corpora cavernosa. And one up below is called corpora spongiosa. And of course, the surrounding, it will be having a good supply of blood vessels. That is both arteries it has, as well as it has veins. Combination of arteries supply, good supply of the blood vessels. Now among these three erectile tissues, in one of them urethra will be passing. and that is urethra is going to pass through the corpora spongiosum. So cross section of penis, the urethra is supposed to be found in the corpora spongiosum. Now these two are erectile, that means they can bring about change in the size, as a result ultimately contribute to erection. Now these are the tissues that will contribute to erection. So erection is change in the length of penis. How do erection occurs is not because of any activity of muscles, or you cannot tell it is due to activity of that means not because of contraction and relaxation of muscles, but instead because of blood flow in these erectile tissues. So that causes erection of penis. So the erectile tissue called corpora spongiosum and corpora cavernosa get engorged with blood. Get engorged with blood, and this leads to erection of penis. Penis is covered by a thin skin around one of its sensitive part called glans penis. So here urethra passes at the center of penis. Here three erectile tissues will be present at the penis. The urethra passes at the center, opens at urethral meanders. And the penis gets swollen at some part. The swollen end of penis is the most sensitive part and is called as glans penis. So in terms of structure, there is a swelling at the tip of the penis. The swollen part is a sensitive part and is also called glans penis. Now this will be covered by a thin skin which is called prepuce, and this prepuce is also called foreskin. In many of the religions, as well as nowadays it becomes a common practice, for religious purpose, the prepuce or foreskin is removed, and that is called as surgically removed, and that is called as circumcision. Circumcision is common in certain religion, but nowadays it has also become common due to the belief that it can prevent perineal cancer also. So this is about the surgical removal of prepuce or foreskin. This completes the external genitalia in the male reproductive system.
ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಕಡಿಮೆ